Hey y'all, Amber here. This week's video is one of my older characters, yet she's also one of the least defined. By that, I mean she has plenty of information, but it's all mostly basic stuff. A lot of the nitty-gritty details have not been figured out. Now, if you can hear me being a bit breathy, I'm so sorry. My apartment is a bit of a sauna right now. So that's fun. Anyway, moving on. First and foremost, this lady's name is Sydney Sherwood. She doesn't remember her birth name, as she was abandoned shortly after birth, and she grew up on the streets. When she was first abandoned, there was another on the streets that took care of her. It certainly wasn't an ideal upbringing, but she survived and did so decently well. She was abandoned because of her skin tone. See, Sydney was born white. Too white. And her parents didn't like that at all. She was born an albino, and her parents just didn't want to deal with that. So, they abandoned her. When she was 9, just past her birthday, the little girl caught the attention of the one person that could give her the best life. But also the one that she absolutely did not want to be taken in by. Not that she knew it at that point. The one that had taken her in was Elizabeth Bathory. In this world, history is still a thing. What happened in our past is also what happened in their past. So, Bathory is still a fiendish woman. However, it is a little different. Yes, she was one to torture people, and in this world, she has the reputation of bathing in the blood of young women. But there's a bit of a change here. She was a vampire. The quote-unquote bathing in blood was more her draining her victims to maintain her life. That's also part of the reason why she adopted this little girl. When she was taken in, she was given the name of Csilla Bathory. At first, she was extremely grateful to have been taken in, that she had a home. The little 9-year-old albino girl didn't have to wait to die on the streets, and that was all she was worried about at the time. She did everything for the woman, her new mother, and the woman that seemed to appreciate it. When someone asked why she took in a child that looked like that, she claimed it was because they were too similar. They were both extremely pale, after all. On Chilla's 10th birthday, she was given a gift she would never forget. That was when she found out what her adoptive mother was and why she took Csilla in. For her 10th birthday, she was turned into what she believed at the time a monster. Her new mother was a vampire, and now the child was too. Of course, the reason she was turned was something that Csilla learned quickly. It was the night of her birthday when her new mother gave her some weird tea. And yes, this is after she was turned. Csilla didn't want to drink it. It didn't smell or taste good. She had to, though. Her mother demanded it, and struck her when initially Csilla refused. She drank it unwillingly, and quickly learned what it was that her mother wanted. When she set the mug that had whatever she just ingested down, she felt her arm grabbed and she was pulled to her feet. She was led down into a basement location, and that was where she learned far more than she wanted to. That night was hell. She was a vampire with a special and illegal serum in her system that made her appear as alive. That meant she bled. She was a vampire, and the serum granted her the closest to life that a vampire could have. Her heart was beating, artificially, of course. It was pumping blood through her veins. She acquired a little bit more of a rosy complexion. She was born a vampire. She was born an albino, so barely any difference. But that little bit there. Her adoptive mother was Elizabeth Bathory and was a vampire. Now she had a child to feast upon and take the eyes of the law off of her. It's why she adopted little Csilla. And the little girl didn't fight it. She learned quickly how many lives she was saving by being the repeat victim. She hated it. That was undeniable. She couldn't go against the woman who had taken her off the streets, however. This continued for years. Until there was a fire. That was her chance, and the only chance she had. So, Csilla ran. She took off. She left most of her belongings behind, and she didn't believe she had the time to grab anything. All she was worried about was getting out of there, So that's what she did. She ran and she didn't look back. She didn't care that she was living on the streets again. It would be far better than the life she'd been living. It took a few years, but eventually she met an elderly gentleman who took her in, understood that she was a vampire, and helped her out. He gave her shelter, food, and treated her as if she was his own child. It warmed her dead heart, especially when he put himself into potential legal trouble. The serum that she'd been fed by her mother was illegal and highly addictive. It was something that she was doing a crude version of before this point because she didn't know how to make it. Didn't know it was illegal either. She learned that later. There were very few instances where someone was found with that serum would not be in legal trouble. And yet, he still put himself at risk for her. Up until the day he died. When he died, or at least when he was extremely close, he told Csilla that he wanted her to drain him. He was old and was going to die soon anyway, so why not go out on his own terms, and in a way that would help the teen that he viewed as his own daughter. Csilla did not like it, but he was insistent on being useful, and she really didn't want to refuse a dying wish, so she ended up agreeing. It was a painful meal, but he had been quite thrilled to go out on his own terms. Not only did he grant her a meal, actually a few meals by that token, he left the recipe for how to make that serum with her. He had worked for the council and the triad. Council and triad in this world are political governing bodies for mages and non-humans. Anyway, he had worked for them throughout his long life and had a copy of the recipe. He gave it to her since he realized the addictive properties, and that was just one thing he did to help. After he died, Csilla was left alone in the house. He'd made sure she was well set up for years, and it meant a lot to her. She didn't want to forget the man, so after some deliberation, she took his name. People often had a hard time pronouncing her name anyway, so she took on his name, Sydney, instead. She never legally changed her name, but she doesn't use her given, quote-unquote, any longer. It was her way of helping the man that helped her out stay alive, in a sense. Plus, she hates a lot of the mispronunciations of her name. She lived alone for a few years, being careful not to be caught when needing to feed, but she learned quickly that she wasn't careful enough. She drew the attention of some mana hunters, and they wanted to kill her. Yet, that didn't go quite according to plan. The one that they had sent in to incapacitate her ended up falling in love with her. Admittedly, that was after watching her for a while, seeing what her routines were, and all of that stuff, before going in to do what he'd been tasked with. When he actually went in for the kill, he found that he couldn't do it. Instead, one thing led to another and they got talking. He realized there was a lot more to the woman than he could rightly end. The hunter group that he was a part of was not happy with him. They wanted to take him out and do as he was tasked with as well. He didn't like that, so he ran. He ran back to Sydney and they left for Italy. In Italy, they built a life together. She accepted and was okay with him being a mana hunter and the fact that he was fighting his natural instinct to kill her. However, he loved and found himself adoring Sydney too much to take her out of the picture. They ended up having a child together, but that is entirely a whole nother video. I will say this much. Her son is Jaden, the first video that I gave character information for. There's a link in the card and the description below if you're at all interested in checking it out. I will also post a video for Jaden's father. His name is Domenico, and I will do that later. And I think I've rambled on about Sydney for long enough. So, I'll end it here. Thanks for hanging around and listening to my rambling on. And I'm so sorry this one isn't quite as pieced together as the others. As I said, she doesn't have as many details, just basic ideas. If you want to know more about her, because like I said, after they go to Italy, there's a huge amount of information there. That is where it's more established. And even with Nico, I kind of rushed through that, I admit. So let me know. I'll gladly do another piece and a video of her, and we'll have more information in there, if there's interest. In the future, if there is a video, and you're watching this, we'll say 2 months from now, and I've done another video on it, there will be a link in the card and in the description below to part 2 so that you can check it out if you want. Alright, I love you all, and I'll see you next week. I think I know who it's going to be. It's going to be my succubus girl, but she's got even less information than this one. Anyway, oh, right. One last thing I wanted to mention before finally properly signing off. I have actually started using my Twitter account more regularly. There's a link to it in the description below. So if you wanted to check that out, cool. If not, that's totally fine. But I'm just letting you know it's an option. Anyway, stay cool, cats. I'll catch you on the flip side. This is Amber out. See ya.